the Public News Service Daily Newscast, November the 11th, 2020. I'm Mike Clifford. Members of the National Task Force on Election Crises are speaking out about President Donald Trump's refusal to concede the election, saying it could have major repercussions if it continues.
The head of the General Services Administration is holding up almost $10 million for the Biden-Harris transition. Kate Shaw, a professor at the Cardozo School of Law, says she expects the voter fraud lawsuits launched by the Trump campaign to fail.
It is very difficult for me to see the GSA administrator defensively continuing to decline to make this determination, which does, I think, very much hinder the transition team.
I'm Suzanne Potter.
The task force is urging the Congress to pass House Resolution 1. It's a package of democracy reforms. COVID-19 taking a heavy toll now on North Dakota. With the election out of the way, some hope that politics might be taken out of debating the state's response. But the disagreements continue, as our Mike Moen explains.
Newly re-elected Governor Doug Burgum announced this week that hospitals are at full capacity because of the pandemic. He's been outspoken about encouraging people to wear masks to help stop community spread, but has refused to issue a statewide mandate. Landis Larson of the North Dakota AFL-CIO says a mandate would not only protect frontline workers from infection, but also from having to enforce orders issued by their employer or municipality.
You know, a lot of cities have made mask mandates with no penalty. Well, there's the people that end up enforcing it or trying to are those frontline people.
Larson says his biggest concern is a lack of standards in OSHA enforcement when it comes to infectious diseases. He says that was addressed in the HEROES Act relief package, which cleared the U.S. House but wasn't taken up by the Senate. Governor Burgum, a Republican, thinks there isn't enough data to show statewide mask rules are effective and says local ordinances could have a greater impact.
The governor's office there has seen a handful of top officials resign during the crisis, drawing more public scrutiny of the state's response. Utah leaders have declared a public health emergency in the wake of rising COVID-19 rates, but the state's public school teachers say they've been left out of the plan. With a spike in infections, a high rate of transmission, the governor there issued a mandatory mask order this week, but the Utah Education Association points out that order leaves in-class instruction in place in public schools. Heidi Matthews is the president of the UEA.
We are placing them at a higher risk. We aren't giving them enough time to adequately do what they know that their students need.
State officials did not respond to our request for comment by deadline. A growing number of students turn to Texas community colleges for the first 2 years of their education to save money before transferring to a four-year school, but too often those students learn many of their credits will not transfer.
Last year, Texas lawmakers passed Senate Bill 25, designed to help students avoid losing credits as they move through the higher education system. John Fitzpatrick with the nonprofit Educate Texas says thousands of students and families forfeit time and money when credits don't transfer.
And we just make it really hard for kids. And we particularly make it really hard for students and families who are the first generation in their family to go to college.
Fitzpatrick says for a faster and more economical experience, Texas parents and students need the equivalent of an HOV lane from community college to a four-year school. I'm Roz Brown.
At a broader level, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has initiated the Scaling Partners Network to address the issue. And one of the unspoken challenges among first-generation beginning farmers is a lack of social support and generational knowledge. An Ohio program is helping to address this by pairing new farmers with experienced sustainable farmers.
Minister Aaron Hopkins is an urban farmer at 2 sites in Columbus and a graduate of the Ohio Ecological Food and Farm Association's Heartland Farm Beginnings course. He was connected with a farm mentor to get helpful advice on his operation. Hopkins says the relationship opened his eyes to his own role in supporting the next generation.
I also learned a lot about engaging in policy and policy issues. And so I do want to be a great advocate for these urban farms and farmers of color, looking at how they are supported and what opportunities exist for them.
OFA's Begin Farming program works to increase the number of successful, sustainable, and organic farmers across the region. Mary Sherman reporting.
Finally, our Nadia Ramlagan tells us North Carolina's oyster farmers grappling with rising seas, ocean acidification, are now speaking out about the climate change impacts they're witnessing firsthand.
Tyler Chadwick grew up in the commercial fishing industry and now owns Carolina Gold Oyster Company. He says the first year he started growing oysters, Hurricane Florence hit, followed by Hurricane Dorian in 2019.
I wouldn't say I particularly see a pattern of storms, but I definitely see more and more storms, which is kind of concerning. I can't even remember how many we've had this year, but it's got to be double digits now, the named storms we've had. That's a big risk for me.
This is Mike Clifford for Public News Service, wherever listeners supported, heard on radio stations across the nation, and now viewed on Free Speech TV.